The first pumpkin beer of the season. I know I'm a little bit late on this, but I feel like there have been not great options for pumpkin beer in my area. I don't know what's going on. I'm excited to try this because this looks legit. This is Flying Dog The Fear. Ooh, perfect for our video today. This is an Imperial pumpkin ale brewed with pumpkin and spices, and it is a 9% ABV. Music to my ears. Oh, damn. Oh, damn. That's good. Why is there only one time of year when we embrace the fear? At all other times, the fear dominates us, controls us, and prevents us from greatness. Whatever the fear is that consumes you, learn to embrace it. Only then will the true artist in you rise up. Wow, that is very dramatic. That's a dramatic bottle, but that's perfect. That's perfect because I have a dramatic retelling of one of my favorite movies to share with you today. That's right, this is a box office beat. I haven't done one of these in so long. I'm excited to bring this series back. I took a hiatus. I don't have a good reason for it other than these are just really fun, but you know, they're a little bit more labor intensive. But I had to do this one. I had to, because this week the new Halloween Kills movie is coming out. So this is the newest in the Halloween franchise. And I thought, what better time to do a box office beat about one of my favorite movies of all time, which is the OG Halloween. This is the first one in the franchise. This is what began it all. Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, PJ Souls. I'm so excited to do this video. So this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna do my makeup. I'm not gonna talk about the makeup. I'm just gonna do my makeup on camera. And if you are curious about anything that I use, just look down below in the description box. You'll find it all there, but I'm not gonna yammer on about that because we wanna talk about the movie. If you have not seen Halloween, I need you to look at your life and look at your choices. Not only is this one of the most incredible horror films that was ever made, it's one of the best films ever made. I think because Halloween has become such a huge franchise. It's, you know, it makes so much money. It's so famous that it's easy to forget that this franchise actually started as an indie movie. This was the most successful independent movie ever made for many, many years. So this movie was made in 1978, and basically John Carpenter came up with the idea because at one point he met a very young mental patient in his life, and he felt like this child was pure evil. Like he could see it behind his eyes. It was palpable. He'll never forget it. And that's what spawned Halloween. Halloween was made on a very, very, very tight budget. It had $300,000 to work with. Actually, $320,000 to be exact, because the $20,000 went to Donald Pleasance for him to play Dr. Loomis. They actually offered that role to a couple other actors. I believe one of them was Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee turned it down because it wasn't enough money. The movie was originally called The Babysitter Murders, and it was supposed to take place over a period of a few days. But because there was such a limited budget on this movie, they're like, we need this to take place in one day. Like, we need to get in, get out. That also cut back on the cost of locations. It cut back on the cost of everything, costuming, all that stuff, because again, it only happened within a 24-hour period. It was a real tight schedule to make this movie. They made it in 20 days. 20 days. That's like a little over 2 weeks. Like, what do you mean? So one of the interesting things is this was actually filmed in the spring, and it was filmed in California. Now this takes place in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois. So yeah, it was going to be called The Babysitter Murders, but in order to simplify things and cut back on all the things I just mentioned, they changed the name to Halloween because Halloween is one day, a very famous day, a very apropos day to the plot line. And it just worked. I mean, they didn't know it was going to work as well as it did. Let me tell you, I mean, Everyone was shocked when this movie just took off. Again, this was an indie movie. There was not a lot of production value. There wasn't a lot of money behind it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that when you watch this movie, it's so beautifully shot and it's so well done. It's amazing what they did on such a short amount of time and such a short budget. So it was filmed in the spring in California. When you watch Halloween, specifically, I think the scene where Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, I'm going to go through the cast and crew in just a second. The scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is talking to the little boy she's about to babysit, Tommy Doyle, in the very beginning of the movie, and they're walking along in the neighborhood. You can see, if you look close enough, you can see palm trees in the background. And because it was springtime, they had to manufacture all these fake leaves and like spread them around, and they would just reuse those leaves over the shoot. So like everything you're seeing that's giving you this ambiance and this vibe of fall and Halloween and coziness, it's all a lie. The music is one of the stars of this movie. I mean, John Carpenter composed this score in 10 days. 10 days. They're just whipping this shit out. Yeah. This is a relatively small cast of people and a relatively small crew of people. So this is directed by John Carpenter. The screenplay is done by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. So as far as the cast, we have Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. We have Jamie Lee Curtis, the queen herself, as Laurie Strode. We have Nancy, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her last name, but Nancy Kyes, I think, as Annie, and PJ Souls as Linda. So that's really like the main cast. And you're like, Kate, you're forgetting about Michael Myers. No, I'm not. I'm not actually, because I want to talk about that a little bit later, but 3 different people portrayed Michael Myers in this movie. This is really like 3 different people's story, okay? This is Laurie Strode's story, this is Michael Myers' story, and this is also Dr. Loomis's story, who I think is clearly one of the most compelling characters in the entire film. Donald Pleasance does such an incredible job playing the person who knows Michael Myers best. He like blows me away. Every single time I watch it again and again, I'm just like, damn, this guy is legit. And he was legit because Donald Pleasance actually, wow, let me put on some makeup while I'm talking, why don't I? Donald Pleasance was actually a very lauded stage actor. I think you can tell by watching him. I mean, he is just a consummate professional. He's very dramatic, which is what the part calls for, but you know, he does it in a way that doesn't feel over the top or campy. He's just, he's so amazing in this movie. I love when I hear things like this. Everything I read about everyone who's ever worked with Donald Pleasance was like, this man was just like the sweetest. He was so professional. He was so kind. Everything he did, even if it wasn't like, you know, the best work, he put his all into it. This was a star maker role for Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, this really was her debut film. And Jamie Lee Curtis was 20 years old when she made this movie. Her 2 girlfriends in the movie, who are like part of the main cast, they were actually 29. So they're all playing like 17-year-old girls, but Jamie Lee Curtis was actually pretty close to that age. The other 2 girls were actually 29 in life, which I think is pretty apparent. But then again, Jamie Lee Curtis looks very mature and she just has a really mature vibe about her. So all of those actresses kind of meshed well together, and I totally bought it, you know, for the most part. The girl who plays Annie, like, legitimately looks like she could have been some of these children's mother. That's not even a slam. Like, she's 29. Also, the budget was so small that the actors got their own costumes, which is, it's real homespun. It's real ragtag. But you know what? It worked. Jamie Lee Curtis bought her costumes for under $100 at JCPenney. Before I get into the meat of the plot, I do want to point out that I think another reason why this movie was just so revolutionary was because it was about this town where everyone felt safe. You know what I mean? It's a super white suburban town. It's like, oh, nothing bad could happen here. Everything's just perfect. But it kind of showed you that, like, nobody's safe. You know what I mean? And I think that that definitely made this movie just stand out from other horror movies. So the movie starts off in 1963. So it is a flashback because the rest of the movie takes place in present day at the time, which was 1978. So it's 1963, and we are basically seeing a point of view shot. The entire first scene is from the point of view of a shape, okay? And he's often called the Shape, but I'm not going to refer to him as such. I am going to refer to him as Michael Myers. So it's this point of view shot, basically like we are seeing everything through the eyes of 6-year-old Michael Myers. It is Halloween night on 1963, and we're assuming he's gone trick-or-treating. He's in a clown costume, and his sister just, I don't know, made out, had sex with whatever her boyfriend upstairs. And he goes upstairs and he kills his sister with a butcher knife. Now, I did read a couple places that the girl who was hired to play Judith Myers, I read that she was a Playboy playmate. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe someone can confirm in the comments. It's a very unforgettable scene for many reasons, but one, Michael Myers comes up behind her and she's like humming, topless, just in a pair of panties, brushing her hair. You know, like you do. Every time I brush my hair, I definitely have to take my top off. It's a huge part of the process. And that scene ends with little 6-year-old Michael Myers walking out of the house with a giant, bloody, shiny butcher knife. And his parents are just rolling up from, I guess, an evening out. It's really interesting and a little bit strange how it's filmed because all three of those characters literally just freeze, you know, almost kind of like a theatrical production. I think it works, and it also really highlights, there's this one shot where the knife catches the light as the camera is panning out, and it's just, it's pretty impeccable. You know, a lot of things that I don't know that would work today worked back then because it was the 70s. Okay, so now we're back in 1978, and Dr. Loomis has basically taken care of Michael Myers for 15, not taken care of, that's the wrong phrase. He's kind of been like his main doctor. He's come to know Michael, and he's come to know Michael is incredibly dangerous, and he knows him like no other person. Like, everyone else thinks Michael is just fine. They're like, yes, he's mentally disturbed, but he's like catatonic, he's super quiet, nothing to worry about. Dr. Loomis is the one who's like, no, you don't understand. And he spends the entire movie, I'm gonna let you know right now, the entire movie, it's enraging, just running around trying to tell people, no, listen, I know this person. He is psychotic and he is dangerous and he's gonna hurt people. And everyone else is like, so that's infuriating. Just prep yourself for that. So basically the scene takes place in a car. It is very film noir. It is a dark and stormy night. The dialogue feels very film noir, and he is talking to his assistant. She's a nurse who's driving the car, and they are headed toward the sanitarium where Michael Myers is being held. Basically, the reason they were even going there was to pick up Michael Myers and to get him in front of a judge, and his incarceration was going to be, his future incarceration was to be determined. Loomis gets out of the car. He tries to open the gate. Michael Myers jumps on top of the car. He attacks the nurse inside the car. She's a survivor, so she escapes, and Michael Myers hops in the car and drives away. I also love that scene with the nurse. I mean, she's just so fabulous. It's so freaking weird. I mean, again, the 70s, but she's like in this cape and then the nurse hat, and she's smoking a cigarette. Now we flash forward to our heroine, Miss Jamie Lee Curtis, and her dad is a realtor. So he's like, I want you to take these keys. We're gonna show a house today. It's the Myers house. Now, when you see the Myers house, you'll be like, ain't nobody gonna do a walkthrough of that house, okay? Like, what are you even talking about? I mean, it's a real fixer-upper. And from the get-go, you can tell Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Lori, is just very respectful, very kind, quiet, kind of a bookworm character. So she's on her way to the Myers house, and she runs into the little boy that she's gonna babysit that night, and his name is Tommy Doyle. He's so excited about, you know, the fact that she's gonna babysit him that night, and they're talking about what they're gonna do, and it's super cute. And then they come up on the Myers house, and he's like, wait, what are you doing? Why are you going up there? And Laurie's like, I have to go up here because my dad's gonna show this house. And he's like, bad things happen there. And Laurie's like, nah. So she goes up and she puts the keys underneath the rug, and we see the shape, a figure from inside of the house watching her, which Michael Myers. There are several things about Michael Myers that are very defining. One of those things is his breathing. Michael Myers has this very like calm, deep breathing that you can hear. I started breathing with him, okay? I started breathing with him because actually it kind of slowed down my breathing and felt a little meditative. So maybe anytime I need to like just calm down, I'm gonna harness, that's the only time I'm gonna harness Michael Myers, but it's very calming. So this is the first time we see Michael Myers clock Laurie Strode. And here's the dealio, okay? This is weird. I just learned this about the franchise. It's very confusing, but I'm going to try to simplify it. This was obviously the first movie. They didn't know that any other movies were going to be made. You know, we don't really know like why Michael Myers is targeting Laurie. But if you watch the sequel, they basically imply / say that Laurie Strode is his sister, and that's why he's targeting her. So if you watch the first two movies in the franchise, that's sort of the premise. But if you watch the other movies in the franchise, that's not the premise. So I guess we're left to assume that, you know, Laurie dropped off those keys and Michael Myers happened to be back in the Myers house and he saw her and became obsessed and started stalking her, and there you have it. Depending on what movies you see, it's like kind of a different motivation and a different plot, but there's nothing in the first movie to indicate that she's actually his sister as far as I know. So Laurie drops the keys off, she leaves, she says goodbye to Tommy Doyle, see you tonight. The next scene is this like very heated argument between Dr. Loomis and another doctor, and Dr. Loomis once again is trying to convince someone that Michael Myers is dangerous. He's like, no, you don't understand. I think he drove away in this car and he's probably headed toward Haddonfield. And this other doctor's like, what do you mean? Like, Michael Myers can't drive. The only person who doesn't underestimate Michael Myers is Dr. Loomis. Everyone else like just doesn't get it. So Dr. Loomis is like frustrated and incensed and gets in the car and goes. So the next scene, we see Laurie Strode in class, and she looks out the window and there is the sanitarium car that Michael Myers has, you know, stolen, and he's standing behind it and he's staring at her from across the street. It's super creepy. Laurie seems like a little bit confused but not shaken, which I have to say, if someone was staring at me from across the street in like a creepy white mask, I'd be a little shaken. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I think I'm scared. So I mentioned to you earlier that Michael Myers is played by 3 people, which is kind of interesting. So Nick Castle is the person that most people associate with Michael Myers in that film. But when Nick Castle couldn't do it, then the production designer would step into it, Tommy Lee Wallace. I think that's amazing / hilarious. Like, is Nick around? Nick Castle? Anywhere? No? Okay, yeah, just like whoever, just get Tommy, come over here. And then in the last scene, there's another actor that they hired, and that person was only on camera for like a couple seconds and got paid $250 for his appearance. So 3 people technically play the adult version of Michael Myers in Halloween. You know, going back to Dr. Loomis, he's just trying to let everyone know, let everyone know that Michael Myers is headed to Haddonfield, and of course no one believes him, so he's somewhere between Haddonfield and where he came from, talking on a payphone, arguing with the police department in Haddonfield, and saying like, he's on his way. Like, I know this is happening. And of course they're like,
He's on his way. You've got to believe me, officer. He is coming to Haddonfield. Because I know him. I'm his doctor. You must be ready for him. If you don't, it's your funeral.
So he's like incensed again and like gets in the car and drives off. So then the next scene is all about the girls. Okay, we meet Linda, played by PJ Souls. we meet Annie, played by, why can't I remember her name? Nancy Kyes, who's fantastic. So good, like such a nasty little smartass she is. I mean, at times I'm like, are you guys friends? Like, what's even happening? She's so biting and oftentimes cruel, but, you know, their dynamic is entertaining to watch.
I'm babysitting the Doyles. It's only 3 houses down. We can keep each other company.
Oh, terrific. I've got 3 choices. Watch the kids sleep, listen to Linda screw around, or talk to you.
Annie and Lori are going to babysit that night across the street from each other. And then we have PJ Souls. If you guys don't know who that is, you probably do. If you've seen Carrie, you totally know who that is. Totally know who that is.
The game is in the afternoon. I have to get my hair done at 5, and the dance is at 8. I'll be totally wiped out.
I don't think you have enough to do tomorrow.
Totally.
And this role was actually written for PJ Souls by John Carpenter because he loved her so much in Carrie. She's pretty much playing the same role, the same exact role. She's a dingbat, really vapid, just a good time gal. Just like not a lot going on up there, you know? So the deal is like Lori and Annie are going to babysit that night. And Linda, of course, is going to try to get lucky. Like her whole goal is to like find a place to have sex with her boyfriend, Bob. This, you know, priorities. So they're walking along and who does Lori see but the Shape? She sees Michael Myers standing before her, like feet away behind this bush. And, you know, she's freaked out and she says something to Annie and she like charges up to the bush to look and see, you know, if there's anyone behind the bush. And of course there isn't.
You're standing right there. Poor Lori. Scared another one away. It's tragic you never go out. You must have a small fortune stashed from babysitting so much.
You guys think I'm too smart.
I don't. I think you're wacko. Now you're seeing men behind bushes.
You know, that's what good friends do. They gaslight them and then call them psychotic. So many problematic things that would not hold up today, but it was the 70s. So Lori gets home. It's like she's seeing Michael Myers everywhere, okay? Because he's obsessed with her. He's full on stalking her. So she looks out her bedroom window, sees him standing in the neighbor's yard. And, you know, she's starting to look disturbed, but not disturbed enough. So we're back with the girls. We're back with Annie and Lori, and they're in the car. They're, you know, going to their babysitting that night, smoking a joint, smoking a doob. And Annie's father is the sheriff, Sheriff Brackett, of course. So they start to smoke the doob, and then, of course, they come up on the sheriff's car, and they're like, oh my God, put it out, and they freak out. The car has to be filled with smoke. Like, I don't even know how you couldn't smell that after how much pot they've apparently smoked, but they have to have this interaction with her dad, and apparently he can't smell it. This sheriff is like a dimwit. He is not paying attention to anything. He does not have his eyes open. He is not listening. He's like the most oblivious, don't give a shit sheriff I've ever seen, and I want to punch him in the face. Wait, before I go on, the sheriff was investigating like a robbery or a break-in at one of the local stores. Apparently someone, I don't know who, but I can't imagine who, broke in and stole ropes, knives, and masks. And of course, like, Sheriff Brackett is just so oblivious that he's like, darn kids going out and stealing murder weapons. It's gotta be kids. So then we see Loomis approach the sheriff, and he's like, hey, I've got to talk to you about something very important. We know what it must be, right? He's going to tell the sheriff that there is a murderer loose in the town. They're having this conversation about like going to a dance, and Annie is jabbing. I'm just going to do my brows more. Annie is jabbing Lori for like, you know, not having anyone to go to the dance with, or like not pursuing anything. And so it comes up that, you know, Lori likes Ben Tramer.
You know, you could ask somebody. Oh, I could. Sure you could. All you have to do is go up to somebody and say, you want to go to the dance?
You could do that. I couldn't.
Well, you could ask Dick Baxter. He'd go out with you.
I'd rather go with Ben Tramer.
Ben Tramer? I knew it! See, you do think about things like that, huh, Lori?
Now, I read a couple things about this scene. I read that this was totally improvised by the two girls, and like the name Ben Tramer was totally made up by Jamie Lee Curtis, which is what I want to believe. I also read that Ben Tramer was an actual person that I think John Carpenter knew, but I'm gonna go with the improv story because I appreciate that more. I want to think that they were in the car filming and Jamie Lee Curtis literally came up with the name Ben Tramer just out of nowhere, and that's how it became a thing. So they get to their babysitting houses literally across the street from each other, and then we see that Michael Myers is stalking Annie. So Dr. Loomis is trying to convince this freaking sheriff that there's reason to be very concerned. So he takes him to the Myers residence. Something I want to mention about the set, the Myers house, which I think is really interesting, is that when you see the Myers house in like all the 1978 scenes, it really is abandoned. Like it was an abandoned house. It looked like shit. It was a total shack. It was not nice. It was not safe. And so like that was very real. So they filmed the whole movie. They filmed the whole movie with that just being the Myers house. And then they went back and filmed the first scene last. So the first scene with little 6-year-old Michael Myers is like the house in 1963. So the crew actually had to like completely revamp the Myers house. Like they cleaned it, they painted it, they did everything they could to make it look like a really nice house in 1963. But it was like one of the last things they filmed, yet it was the first scene. I just think that's crazy. I can't imagine trying to like almost like flip that house to make it look decent. So Loomis is, you know, taking the detective to the Myers house. It's now like night. It's nighttime, it's pitch black. They're in the house and Loomis is basically like looking for Michael Myers. He's like, I know he's gonna come back here. So he's like laying in wait for Michael Myers essentially. And he's trying to like get it through to this sheriff who they're dealing with. It's not landing. It's not sinking in, you know? In the house, they find this like half-eaten dog, which is terrible. It's off screen. You don't see it. But basically, the sheriff is like, oh my God, how could a man didn't do that? A man couldn't eat a dog like that. And Dr. Loomis is like, this isn't a man.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
It's so dramatic, but it's so good. It's so good. His line readings are like, mwah. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is my second beer, but I feel pretty okay. So Loomis is like, tell the police to keep their mouths shut. I'm gonna lay in wait here at the house. So that's where we leave him. So now we go to the place where Laurie is babysitting, Tommy Doyle's house, and she's reading him a story and they're having a super cute interaction, and he brings up the boogeyman. So again, we have this boogeyman theme because these bullies at school were, you know, taunting him about the boogeyman. So he's like, what's the boogeyman? But Laurie doesn't get a chance to answer because the phone rings. How convenient. So the person on the phone is Annie. Smartass Annie. She's calling to let Laurie know that she has informed Ben Tramer that Laurie likes her. What? Listen, you might be like, well, you know, maybe she's like pushing things along. No, that is a dick move of Annie. Laurie's horrified. She's absolutely mortified. And during this phone exchange, you know, they're super distracted. Little Tommy Doyle is looking out the window and he sees, who do you think he sees? Well, he sees the boogeyman. He sees, you know, Michael Myers. He freaks out, and then Laurie goes to look out the window and he's not there. He's not there. So now starts the stalking of Laurie's friends. Okay, we've got to take care of them. And when I say take care of them, I think you know what I mean. So first, Michael Myers, you know, focuses on Annie, and, you know, she's like really getting excited because she's seeing this guy named Paul. Oh, Paul. She's gonna get it on tonight. You know, she's babysitting, but she doesn't give a shit about babysitting. She's gonna see Paul. So she's in the kitchen, she's popping popcorn, and Michael Myers is watching her from the window. She spills butter all over her clothes. So what does she have to do? Well, she's got to take off her clothes, literally just in the kitchen, no clothes. So she disrobes in the kitchen. She grabs like a men's button-down shirt and she just is wearing that with underwear and socks, which honestly is a super cute look, and I'm thinking about rocking it myself. The actress who plays Annie is giving me the most fabulous, like curly kind of Jennifer Grey circa Dirty Dancing hair, and I'm obsessed with it. Now we go over to the other babysitting experience with Laurie and Tommy Doyle, and Tommy asks Laurie about the boogeyman. Laurie says the boogeyman isn't real, okay? The boogeyman is just silly. It's superstitious. It's not real. Tommy's very upset, and Laurie's like, Laurie's so sweet to this kid. She really is so like, I really do love their relationship. It's very loving, and she's like, I'm never going to let anything happen to you. Do not worry. So there's this whole sequence of events with Annie that's kind of madcap, where she like is trying to do her laundry and she gets stuck in the window. It's kind of, you know, building the anticipation. So I'm not gonna like get in the weeds about that. She decides that she's gonna see Paul that night, and Paul wants her to come and pick him up. So Annie, being the incredible, thoughtful, awesome friend that she is like, I'm gonna pawn off the kid I'm babysitting onto my good friend Laurie, make her babysit 2 kids, and go and have sex with this dude. Laurie's like, I don't know if that sounds like something I want to do. And Annie's like, okay, but like, if you do it, I will correct things with Ben Tramer tomorrow. It's like, bitch, you created this whole situation. She is so manipulative. Anyway, of course, Laurie's a pushover in this way. So she's like, okay, yeah, I'll just like take on another child. No worries. Just go and have your fun. Let me tell you, Annie doesn't get very far, because she's like singing about Paul. She gets in that car to go see him. But guess who's in the car? Oh, you guessed it. Michael Myers is in the back seat. He chokes her to death. So that's the end of Annie. Annie feels very like Kathy Griffin to me. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe she's giving me, or she gave me. So now the 2 kids are together and they're being taken care of by Laurie, and they're hanging out in the living room. And Tommy, again, looks out the window and sees a man carrying a limp, lifeless woman's body into the house across the street. So, you know, just casual. So the kids are, you know, super upset, and they're like screaming, and Laurie, you know, again, like didn't see what is happening. So she's like, calm down, everything's fine. So this whole movie is just a sequence of people being like, I didn't see that. What do you mean? It's fine. Okay, so the next friend we have to get rid of course, is, you know, good old PJ Souls, good old Linda. She rolls up with Bob, and she calls Laurie, and she's like, hey, what's going on? And they find out basically that they're going to be alone in this house, and they're just thrilled to death. But little do they know that they're being stalked by Michael Myers. Long story short, they both bite the dust. I mean, it's a very comedic sequence. I think PJ Souls is fantastic. And also, the guy who plays Bob, actually that role I think was offered to Dennis Quaid, and he turned it down. This kind of perpetuates that whole like horror movie thing, right? Where if you're having sex, you're gonna get murdered. If you're the virgin, you're not, which is kind of this well, not unspoken. It's a spoken rule. But John Carpenter actually denies that. He's like, that's not what I was going for in this movie. You know, if anyone is murdered, it's just because they're stupid kids and they're running around and having sex and they're distracted and they don't know that there's like a murder in their town. Okay, John, if you say so. He comes up behind PJ Souls when she's on the phone with Laurie, and he strangles her with the phone cord. Laurie's on the phone with Linda, and she thinks Linda's joking around, but not really. Linda just bit the dust. I forgot a scene that's very important. There's a scene with Dr. Loomis, and he's still standing outside of the Myers house, okay? And he's waiting for Michael Myers, and he sees these little 3 kids walk up to the Myers house. They're actually the kids who bullied Tommy Doyle and said like, oh, the boogeyman's gonna get you. So they're like daring each other to go into the house, and one of the kids is like, I'm gonna go in, I don't care. And then Dr. Loom, this is hilarious to me. I laugh out loud every time. Donald Pleasance is behind the shrub and watching them. And he's like, Lonnie, get your ass away from there. Like literally, it's like he throws his voice and puts on an entirely different voice. It is so like alarming. I mean, I'm not mad about it. It makes me laugh, but it's really random. And then Donald Pleasance like gets a kick out of himself, like in the scene.
Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
So Laurie goes to the Doyle house to figure out what's up, and it's totally dark and quiet. Also, Jamie Lee Curtis in this whole last sequence looks fucking incredible. She's giving me menswear. She's giving me a men's button-down collar shirt tucked into, like, just perfectly tucked into these high waist, almost like stretchy looking wide leg dark jeans. Excuse me. You know, she's not too concerned at this point. She's like, I'm just checking things out and I look really hot while I'm doing it. So she checks things out. She goes upstairs. I mean, this whole sequence is brilliantly done because it's just so, it's so slow and so quiet, and the anticipation is just building and building. She gets upstairs. She sees a light coming in from underneath the door. She goes to the door, and it's like a fun house of her friends' dead bodies, essentially. Jamie Lee Curtis is acting her ass off in this whole segment. I mean, she is like the most upset, terrified person I've ever seen. This is a very, very iconic shot, a very iconic moment. She's like just terrified, and she's kind of like leaning against the wall. You can see Michael Myers' face like in this dark closet, just like looming beside her, like over her shoulder. It is, oh, it's so iconic. And he goes to stab her. He misses her. She falls backwards over the banister. So she gets very injured. So the rest of the time she's trying to escape Michael Myers, she's in bad shape. So she's like hobbling everywhere, trying to get out of the house. He's rigged the house every which way so she can't get out of any of the doors. But Laurie's a fighter. She is like the ultimate final girl. So she like punches through the glass, opens the door, and like runs from the house. And like no one cares. She goes to one of the neighbors' houses, and she is just beside herself, screaming for help. And this neighbor turns the porch light on, like opens the blinds and like looks and sees her, and then is like, nah, I don't want to do this. And then just like shuts the lights off and goes to bed.
Oh! Help! Oh, God, help me, please! Hello? Hello? Oh, oh. Hello, help me! Man, please help me! Please! Can't you hear me? Oh, God! Oh!
Wow, that's really fucked up. Okay, so she's like running to Tommy's house. She's like, okay, this is gonna be okay because I'm just gonna run in, I'll be fine. Nope, don't have the keys, don't have the keys. So Tommy's asleep. She's like screaming at this little boy through the window. She wakes him up, and he's like taking a sweet ass time to get downstairs. And like Michael Myers is walking. Now, why did I do this? Michael Myers does not walk like. Another really important aspect of Michael Myers is that he takes his time. You know what I mean? He's gonna find you and he's gonna kill you, but he's gonna do it in his own time. He's gonna do it, but it's in his own time.
Who is it? Tommy, open up, it's me! Yeah, please. Tommy, please! Tommy, hurry up! Tommy, please! Tommy, please! Tommy, get upstairs. What is it? Go right upstairs, get Lindsay, lock the bedroom door. Do as I say!
They're not safe because she gets in the house and she sees that the window's open. So she knows that Michael Myers is in the house with them. She grabs a knitting needle from her knitting satchel. Michael Myers pops out from behind the couch, and damn if Laurie doesn't have a good aim. She just like reaches over his shoulder and pokes him in the neck with the knitting needle, just like perfect. He's out, right? He like falls to the ground and she's like, oh yeah, he's dead. Is he? No. But she thinks she's safe. She's also like super traumatized and injured. So she goes upstairs to check on the kids and she's like, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry. And it's not fine because, of course, Michael Myers, once again, is there right behind her. The kids start screaming. She tells them to go into one of the bedrooms and lock the doors. So they're safe. Nothing happens to them. And she runs into the other bedroom and hides in the closet, which, I mean, clearly, like, he knows she's in there. Now, this is like the super iconic, one of the super iconic scenes from Halloween. Again with the aim, Laurie kills it. I'm not mad about seeing Michael Myers suffer, but I can't do eye things. Ugh, no. He falls to the ground right outside the closet, so she has to do that horrible thing where she has to like maneuver her way like over him, which is terrifying because we all know he's not dead. So she like works her way. Do I even have any makeup left to put on? Okay, put some setting spray on. She works her way around Michael. So once she thinks she kills Michael, she goes and gets the kids and is like, listen, get out of this house, run to the Mackenzies down the street, screaming, tell them what's happening, attracts Dr. Loomis's attention, who's nearby. He's like, oh my God, I know exactly what's going down. So Laurie's just like, again, taking a minute. Again, Laurie, stop it. Just stop thinking Michael Myers is dead. She's tired. She's almost unconscious. I mean, I get it. It's just, she's been through it. And she doesn't notice that Michael Myers, who she thought was dead, is slowly rising behind her.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
And then Loomis goes to look over the balcony where Michael landed and he's gone. He's gone. And we know that he's still out there. And there might be a sequel. And the whole movie ends with Michael Myers basically like breathing heavily. And there's all these like silent still shots of the town. It's so good. It's so creepy. I love it so much. You know what? I like this makeup look. There's something missing. I don't know what it is. Okay. That feels right. That feels much, much better. Guys, thank you so much for joining me for this video. This was an absolute blast. If you are digging on my content, if you are enjoying my box office beat, please go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed and also share this video. I'd so appreciate it. You guys are the best. Stay safe out there and cheers till next time. Bye.